This story was shared by someone who asked me not to use their real name. What happened to them during their final year of high school is something they still refuse to talk about out loud. Not because they don't remember it, but because they're afraid of remembering too clearly. To this day, they don't know what was walking the halls after everyone went home. I went to a public high school that was already old when my parents were kids. The kind of place where the walls were yellowed, the ceilings were stained, and the lights flickered even after being replaced. Long hallways, lockers that never fully closed, and classroom doors that creaked open on their own. The building didn't feel abandoned. It felt exhausted, like it had seen too much. I stayed late most evenings because I was part of the AV club. We handled sound systems, projectors, assemblies, anything that required equipment. Most days we'd be there until 7 or 8 p.m., long after teachers had gone home and the parking lot emptied. At night, the school felt different. The air felt thicker, like it pressed against your chest. Sounds echoed longer than they should have, footsteps stretching down hallways even after you stopped walking. Sometimes lights would turn on ahead of me, and off behind me. I told myself it was motion sensors. I had to. Nothing really happened at first, not to me anyway. It started with the cleaning staff. They complained about doors being unlocked that they knew they had locked. Classrooms rearranged overnight, chairs stacked in ways that made no sense. Bathroom sinks running with no one inside. One janitor claimed he heard footsteps following him, stopping whenever he turned around. Another quit after finding a classroom set up like someone had just taken a test, even though the school had been empty for hours. The principal said it was stress, old plumbing, old wiring. Everyone brushed it off. Until one night, I stayed later than usual. The first night. It was almost 9 p.m. I was alone in the AV room, unplugging cables and stacking equipment when the sound started. Lockers slamming, not chaotic, not random, measured bang, bang, bang. Each one evenly spaced, like someone was walking down the hallway and striking every locker as they passed. I froze, listening. It kept going. I stepped into the hallway and called out, trying to sound calm. "Hello?" My voice echoed farther than it should have. No answer. The hallway lights were on motion sensors. As I took a step forward, the lights flickered on ahead of me, but behind me, they shut off immediately. I stood in a tunnel of dim yellow light, surrounded by darkness. The locker slamming stopped. Then I heard footsteps, slow, heavy, with a faint dragging sound, like the heel of a shoe being pulled across the floor. They weren't coming toward me. They were moving away, deeper into the building. I don't know why I followed them. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was denial. Each step I took echoed too loudly, like the hallway was amplifying sound. The footsteps ahead of me stayed perfectly paced, never speeding up, never slowing down, until they stopped. I rounded the corner and felt my stomach drop. The security gate to the west wing was still locked, padlocked, untouched. The footsteps had led directly into it. I stood there longer than I should have, listening. No breathing, no movement, just silence. Then, very faintly, from behind the gate, a locker slammed. I didn't wait. I told myself it was pipes. Old buildings make noise. Stress does things to your head. I went home. That night I dreamed of lockers slamming in empty hallways. When I woke up, my shoes were still covered in the fine gray dust from the school floor, and I don't remember putting them there. The next evening I stayed again, but this time with my friend Daniel. Around 8:30 p.m., we heard it, footsteps above us. We were on the first floor. Someone was walking on the second floor, even though the entire upper level was locked after 6 p.m. We knew that for a fact because the security gate had to be manually unlocked, and neither of us had a key. Daniel laughed nervously and said, "Probably a janitor." But the footsteps stopped directly above us. Then something else started, a chair scraping, slow, deliberate. Not the quick sound of someone adjusting their seat, more like someone dragging it across the floor inch by inch. Daniel stopped smiling. The sound went on for maybe 10 seconds, then stopped completely. We went upstairs together. Every step felt louder than it should have. One classroom door was open. Inside, every desk was perfectly aligned, straight rows pushed in neatly, except one. It sat at the very back of the room, turned toward the corner. The The chair in front of it was still rocking slightly when we walked in, like someone had just stood up. The room was empty, no open windows, no air vents nearby. Daniel whispered, "Let's go." We didn't lock up properly, we didn't turn off the lights, we just left. When I got home, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept imagining that desk facing the corner, like someone had been told to stand there. At exactly 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a notification from my school email. Subject line, attendance. The email itself was empty. No sender name, just the subject. I didn't go back to sleep after that. The third night. I still don't know why I went back. Part of me wanted proof. Another part of me was afraid of what would happen if I didn't. I stayed late again, alone. By 8:45 p.m., the school felt wrong in a way I can't fully explain. The air felt stale, like it hadn't moved in hours. Even my footsteps sounded muffled, like the building was absorbing sound. At 8:57 p.m., the PA system clicked on. Static, low, steady. Then a voice spoke. Not robotic, not distorted. Clear, calm. Attendance is mandatory. I felt my stomach drop. No one should have had access to the PA system that late. I checked my phone. No signal. At exactly 9 p.m., the bell rang. Not the current bell, the old one. The one they stopped using years ago because it was too harsh. Every classroom light in the hallway turned on at once. Doors began opening, slowly, one after another. From inside the classrooms, I heard chairs sliding back. Somewhere deeper in the building, I heard desks moving. I didn't wait. As I ran past the main office, I glanced inside. Someone was sitting at the receptionist's desk. They were wearing a student uniform. Their posture was wrong, too still, too straight, like they were waiting. As I passed, their head tilted slightly, not enough for me to see their face, just enough to know they were aware of me. The PA system crackled again. Attendance is incomplete. I felt breathing behind me, not loud, close, warm. I sprinted through the exit and didn't stop running until I reached my car. When I looked back at the building, one classroom light on the second floor was still on. A desk was pulled away from the others, facing the window, facing me. I didn't go to school the next day, or the day after that. Every time I thought about walking through those doors, my chest tightened. I barely slept. Every night I dreamed of chairs scraping against classroom floors and a voice calmly calling my name. On the third day, my principal emailed me asking to speak privately. I almost didn't go. When I finally sat down in his office, he closed the door behind me and locked it. That alone made my stomach drop. He asked me why I'd left so suddenly that night. When I told him everything, the footsteps, the classroom, the PA system, the bell, his face slowly drained of color. He didn't interrupt me once. When I finished, he stayed quiet for a long moment. Then he said, very carefully, "You're not the first student to say that." I asked him what he meant. He stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the empty school courtyard before answering. "Every few years," he said, "a student stays late. They hear the same things. They describe the same rooms, the same voice." I asked him why the school was still open. He didn't answer that. Instead, he told me not to stay late anymore. Ever. A month later, the West Wing was sealed off completely. They told everyone it was for renovations, new locks, no keys, no access, not even for teachers. A few weeks after that, one of the night janitors quit without notice. He refused to step inside the building again. People who live near the school still hear the bell sometimes. Not during events, not during storms. Just one sharp ring late at night. And every now and then, during morning attendance, students swear they hear an extra name being called. A name that doesn't belong to anyone in the room. Teachers insist nothing was said. The attendance sheets are always normal, but one desk is sometimes found pulled out slightly from the rest, as if someone stood up and answered. Even after the lights go off, even after the doors are locked, even after everyone goes home, maybe whatever was walking those halls wasn't trying to hurt anyone. Maybe it was just making sure everyone was accounted for. And if you ever find yourself alone in a school after dark, and you hear your name being called during attendance, don't answer. Good night.